Hey guys, so there I was just jamming with the minor 2/5 backing track that's from the newest PDF that we're releasing on jazzlessonvideos.com, and that one is all about minor phrases, and it's a bunch of minor phrases that I've actually played and written down, a bunch of minor phrases written in all 12 keys, using a bunch of different harmonic options, like minor 2/5s, like what I was just doing there, 2-chord vamps, and material for 1-chord vamps. And then it also has subcategories within those harmonies. It talks about, the PDF has phrases using things like pentatonic shifting, like what I was doing there, and melodic cells, and of course just straight ahead bop language. And very important, just diatonic stuff using just the chord scales of each chord, which is going to bring us into what we're going to talk about today, which is minor 2/5s. And minor 2/5s are very difficult chord progressions, mainly because unlike major 2/5-1s, minor 2/5-1s, there are a ton of different chord scale options that you can and should use for really playing fluidly through minor 2/5. So that's what we're going to talk about today. And just a quick note, as always, I hope to see some of you guys out on the road soon. I've been doing a ton of touring, and we're going to be announcing fall dates soon, which will include places like Chile, South Africa, Costa Rica, and more. So make sure to check out my website and stay tuned for all the tour dates coming up so I can see you guys in person on the road. Okay, so now jumping into the lesson, what we've got to talk about in order to master playing on minor 2/5s, to really play fluidly through these chord progressions, what we've got to talk about is mainly just our different chord scale options. Okay, so the first chord, we're just going to talk in concert C minor. So the first chord is always going to be 2 half diminished 7. Then it's going to be dominant 7, flat 9, or it could be flat 13, or sharp 9. There are going to be a few different variations. They're all really subtle, and we're going to get into that in a second. Then lastly, you're always going to have just a minor 7, or it could be a minor major 7. So those are the 3 chords that we need to understand. So first, just to understand those chords. So for the first chord, we've got half diminished 7. And a lot of you guys are going to know this already, but a half diminished chord is just built with the 1, minor 3, flat 5, and dominant or minor 7, depending on how you want to label it, how you want to think about it. But that's how the chord is built. And then on the piano, what you're going to do is you're also going to, as we always do on piano when we really want to play full voicing, we're going to add other scale degrees from the chord. So in order to understand how to build a chord with additional scale degrees and make it a more full chord, what you also need to know is you need to know the other tensions that you can use. So you need to know a scale that goes along with it. Now, here's the funny thing about 2 half diminished, or half diminished chords in general. It is like the one chord where there's kind of like a debate in jazz about what we use. So some people say you should just use Locrian, the Locrian scale, and that's gonna give you a flat 9 on the chord. So that will sound like this. Okay, that's what some people say. Now some people say that you should use the natural 9, and then it's going to be a Locrian natural 2 scale. That's going to sound like this. By the way, for a thesaurus of all the scales you ever need to know in jazz, check out on jazzlessonvideos.com. Just a quick side note, Scales for Jazz Improvisation. It's a PDF that I did for it just has a ton of scales, all the scales you ever need to know, in all 12 keys plus exercises. Great reference. But anyway, getting back to this. So some people say that you should do a natural 9. Some people say that you should do a flat 9. They both sound good. The reason why some people say that you should do the natural 9 is because it creates some nice voice leading when you get to the 5 chord like that. So what happens there, the natural 9 on the first chord ends up going down chromatically and sounding real nice, going down chromatically into the flat 13 of the dominant chord. And then when it resolves like that, we end up having this motion from all the chords. So it's a nice sound. That's why a lot of pianists and guitarists, they typically like to use that natural 9. However, for playing through it melodically, what a lot of people do is they end up just using Locrian. You look at anybody from like Dexter Gordon to Cannonball Adderley to Charlie Parker. I find what those saxophonists and horn players usually ended up using was they would use the flat 9, regardless of what the pianist or guitarist was playing. So food for thought. In my opinion, both are right, both are great options. But just wanted to let you know that is like the one debate about jazz theory that happens in advanced college settings. So moving on, for the half diminished chord, what we just concluded there was the natural 9, the flat 9, they're both cool. So you have 2 scale options. You can do Locrian and Locrian natural 2. So that's the breakdown on the 2 half diminished. And just to show you what those scales sound like real quick with the chord, you're gonna have to bear with my piano scales, but essentially it's gonna be like this. Or this. That was Locrian. Now this is gonna be Locrian natural 2. That's the sound. All right, so here we go. Now moving to the 5 chord. So the thing with the 5 chord in a minor 2/5 is you're gonna have a few different options of 1, playing the chord, or 2, the scale that you use, which is kind of gonna depend on what chord you're thinking of. But, and I know this is getting confusing, ultimately, if you end up using different options, like if you use altered on a flat 9 chord, it's not going to be a big deal, even though technically there's slightly different tensions. And that's pretty much just because the way it resolves into the minor chord, going from the 5 to 1. If it doesn't end up being perfect, what the pianist is playing and what you're playing on the horn, as far as that lining up, it's still going to sound good. It's going to be a classic close enough for jazz situation. This is one of those rare cases because most of the time, you want to know what your scale is and you want to be using the right scale for lining up with how the pianist is voicing it. But with this, there can be some friction. It will sound cool. Now, getting into the point. So with the 5 chord, you're going to have a few different options. One option for the 5 chord is to treat it as just a flat 9. Now, technically, with a flat 9, there's going to be a natural 13. And so, if you're playing on a flat 9 chord, technically, you need to play the half whole diminished scale. But again, this is all with the asterisk, if you will, that a lot of times people for this flat 9 chord, the horn player is going to end up just playing altered or something that technically clashes with it because that's a flat 13. So anyway, that's technically what you want to do. And also worth noting that a lot of pianists and guitarists, when they see a flat 9, they don't necessarily put the natural 13 in, even though a jazz theorist would say that's probably how you should consider it. Okay, so another option here is going to be treating it as altered. And when you do an altered chord, then you're also going to use the altered scale, which some people also call the diminished whole tone, or I think people call it super Locrian. I just like calling it altered. So that's going to be like this. And again, if you want to keep up with any of these references and stuff, just go ahead and check out that Scales for Jazz Improvisation PDF, which is going to have all the scales in all 12 keys and exercises. So super useful PDF package there. But again, so here's the altered chord and the altered scale. Okay, so now we have 2 more options. So for this next option, what we're going to do is we're actually going to do a natural 9 and a flat 13. So this is if you see a dominant flat 13 chord. Technically, you're going to want to treat it like this. And so when you have that chord, the scale that you actually do is Mixolydian flat 6. It's a mode of melodic minor, 5th to be precise. All right, so for that, again, you're doing a natural 9 and a flat 13. It's not the most conventional option, Most people are going to say they don't dig it, but that is an option for you in the minor 2/5. All right, so the last dominant option that I'm going to talk about here, and honestly, this one I think is the one that people use most commonly, and there's a secret combination that I'll talk about in a second that I think people use the most commonly on minor 2/5s for just a really melodic sound. But the last option that we're going to talk about is going to be using Phrygian dominant on the dominant chord. And so that's also a mode of another type of minor, but it's a mode of harmonic minor. And so Phrygian dominant sounds like this. It's a flat 9, a natural 3, 4, 5, flat 13, or flat 6, dominant 7, or minor 7, depending on how you want to think about it, root again. So that's going to be a really melodic option. And as a shortcut, you could actually kind of use that all the way through a minor 2/5. But we're going to talk about that more in a second, and we'll talk about that secret combination that I think is the most effective. All right, so for the last chord, really straightforward. We've just got minor 7, so you're just going to use Dorian there. And, Dorian's going to be more effective of a resolution than if you used Aeolian coming out of the minor 2/5, because you want it to have that color change going from what is really the flat 6 to the natural 6. So you want to use Dorian, but you could also use melodic minor, which is a beautiful sound, and that's going to be part of the secret combination that I talk about in a second for the most melodic option. So again, we've got Dorian, which is just this, or if you want to raise that 7, you've got melodic minor. All right, so first that secret combination. So for me, the most melodic combination of chord scales going through the minor 2/5 is going to be when you use Locrian for the first scale. Then on the next chord, you do that Phrygian dominant sound. And then on the last one, you're going to do melodic minor. This is what I find the most post-bop, bebop, hard bop, just bop legends use in their solos on minor 2/5s. They use that combination. That's the most common sound. Okay, so now I'm just going to play an example using one of the play-alongs that's part of this minor phrases PDF that I was talking about earlier. So I'm going to play you the second phrase down on the minor phrases PDF, and that's going to have this combination of Locrian, Phrygian dominant, and melodic minor. Okay, so now the shortcut for this would be actually if you just use Phrygian dominant all the way through. So that's not like a really precise, accurate sound, but if you're still just kind of getting the hang of playing through minor 2/5s, it's really going to sound totally fine. And what you actually can do is just essentially think about the whole phrase as harmonic minor. So if you're doing a 2/5, into your C minor, you're just going to think C harmonic minor all the way through. So I'll just play for you what that sounds like with the play along. Okay, so beyond that with minor 2/5s, you just want to get comfortable adding in chromatic approach notes and then getting into inside out sort of playing and modern concepts. And so what I've done with this PDF, the minor phrases PDF, is that we have just all this material. So we have tons of content using the diatonic chord scales that we just talked about as a section on each chord progression, because we have more than just the minor 2/5s in this PDF, using approach note and bebop post-bop phrases, and then using inside-out playing, so creating tension and resolution with anything from like pentatonic shifting to melodic scales. So really valuable resource for all these phrases. And what we're going to do to finish up is I'm just going to play you just a few of these phrases from the PDF, just so you can hear them, and we'll put them up on the screen just so you get a visual as well. So hope you dig it, and if you guys haven't subscribed already, make sure to subscribe, hit that little icon that makes it so you see every time I make a post so you don't miss anything, and hope you enjoy these phrases, and I'll see you next time.